G'day guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Wildkard. Thank you for being here and watching my content, and as always, I appreciate your time and giving me the opportunity to talk about the greatest sport in the world, rugby. You are here today because the Super Rugby Round 12 is the Western Force versus the Fijian Drua in Perth at the Force Field. I don't know if they still call it that, but yeah, this was a really tough battle for both teams. This was a really important battle for both teams going into the final few rounds. Both teams are looking for that top 8 spot finish. Going into this game, the Fijian Drua was sitting at 8th, and I think the Western Force was sitting at 11th, maybe 10th. And the Force was able to get a bonus point win, 34 points to 14, and actually leapfrog the Endurers to 8th place on the ladder. Yeah, this is a really, really tough spot for the Endurers now. They came out a really huge win last week against the Hurricanes, against a All Black started Hurricanes team, and was able to win that one. And now this week flying so far away from Fiji, and and maybe the mental load, the mental burden is starting to feeling on the players, right? They're just not able to perform as well as they did last week. A lot of the structure, the strategies, the kicking game was just not there anymore. The team just look, quite frankly, really a bit tired. Yeah, going this game, and the Western Force, on the other hand, really came out with a really structured game. Was much more clinical than they normally was, and this was a really good Western Force, outing from probably one of the better outings for the year. The last time I think the Western Force played this good was round 1 against the Rebels. Outside of that, the Western Force really hasn't looked this good and this polished since for the last so many rounds now till today. So yeah, this was a bit of a tough game for the Endurers. So maybe we'll go through the positives first, and then we'll talk about some of the negatives, some of the stats following this game. So the Endurance set piece has continued to improve, which is really good. The scrummaging looked good against the Western Force, and the lineouts are no longer the Fijians were just there was a time where just getting the lineout straight was a difficult task for the Fijian Endurance. But yeah, all the lineouts went smoothly, all the scrum went smoothly, and most of all, something that the Fijians has done really well and seems to continually to improve is that defense, that really solid defense, really physical defense that they're bringing to the team, giving a lot of team trouble, playing that power game in defense, diffusing a lot of that forward momentum. Fijians did that quite well tonight as well against the Western Force. For the Western Force, like I already mentioned, really nice and well structured game. Some really good kicking game for the Western Force. Some really good individual performance out of Mata Ele with his individual carrying and some of that skill kicks from him on the wing as well. And really something that the Western Force did much better than Fijian Endurance is shifting the ball around the park, was able to exploit the edges. The Endurance almost looked like they're out of ideas a little bit tonight. When they did get the ball, they kind of just did the really basic stuff, having one or two big carries, ball runners, and then and that's pretty much it. They didn't really utilize the space as they would normally would. It really visibly looked tired, to be quite frank, for the Endurers. So if we look at some of the stats, it really tells the story of the both teams, of what really happened when out there for the Endurers. So the Western Force 535 run meters to Endurers 415. 5 tries to 2 bonus point win for the Western Force. So as you can see here, the Endurers, this is something that you generally see Endurers. You expect Endurers to be leading their opposition just because the style of the loose rugby 7 style rugby, with a lot of passing, a lot of the ball shifting around, a lot of offloads. You generally expect the Endurers to have more passes than the opposition, but this week they fell really far behind. So what this is telling you is basically the Endurers are not shifting the ball wide, essentially. Whereas the Western Force were able to shift the ball around the park, attacking the areas they see space, and keep the defense stretched, essentially, or moving the defensive line around as they will. Another thing that Endurance really suffered tonight was the turnovers. There was way too many silly little mistakes, and just really, really starting to hurt them. In last week, there was a lot of small mistakes as well out of the Endurance, but last week the Endurance really had that energy to dig themselves the troubles that they caused. Whereas this week they just didn't have that energy to recover themselves from the small mistakes that they made, and it kind of compounded throughout the game, which made it even worse for them to make a comeback late in the game. And the So 20 turnovers conceded is actually really high for any team. Western Force 10, that's around the average. Tackles made, 123 tackles for Western Force, 23 missed tackles for Western Force. Whereas the Enduro's defense is once again world class this week. 206 tackles made, 15 missed tackles. This is like international testing will be dreaming to get this sort of tackle completion rate. And Enduros are achieving that in club level, which is really, really, really nice for them. So that is a big positive for them. Kicks in play, like again, this is something that I was really surprised. They completely just thrown that out of the window. Last week against the Hurricanes, there was a lot of really clever kicking game from the Fijian Enduros to, counteract the Hurricanes kicking game out of, the All Blacks setup, with the Geordie Barrett, one of the best kicking game in the world. So Enduros was able to manipulate that with a lot of short, high ball kicks, over the top sort of thing. And then this week, that was basically completely gone. Almost completely out of the playbook, and the Fijians just came into this game and just sort of ran the ball, and that was they're really taking something that they did really well last week and just did not apply at all this week at all to the team. The Western Force managed the kicking game just exactly what they needed. 17 kicks to keep themselves in the right position, play in the right areas, and keep Fijians inside their own half. So I follow that on the scrummaging. The Western Force is one that actually lost the scrum feed. The Fijian Enduros actually had a perfect scrum. Lineouts as well, perfect for Fijians and the Western Force throughout the game. Penalties conceded, 13 penalties conceded for the Western Force. Fijian, 11 penalties conceded. Whilst this is still really low kind of penalties conceded, the Fijian Enduro is the best team in terms of discipline. I'm pretty sure they are. Like last week, there was, I think it was 6 penalties conceded, 7. Like the amount of penalties that the Enduros consider is usually lower than 10, has been consistently quite low, like very low, like under 10, 8, sometimes even lower than that. For 11 penalties considered, you can really tell there's a lapse of, mental focus there for the team. That is for sure. So let's go through some of the key moments in the game now. So right away, the Western Force kind of got in the front foot inside the Fijian half, just pounding the try lines a little bit. Fianga gets the ball. He did a really strong carry, got really close. It looked like he reached out, but it was short. And he almost looked like he lost the ball here as well, but he didn't. The referee said it was fine. He scoops the ball back, releases the ball, and then a couple of phases later, the Western Force gets the ball, spreads the ball out wide to the wing. Mata Ele goes into the corner. And just like that, the Western Force gets in the ball 4 minutes into the game. 5 points to 0 leads the match. A few minutes later, the Western Force back into the Fijian half, and you can see the Western Force is getting really quick balls at the breakdown. The Fijians are not really challenging that breakdown early, and as a result, the Western Force was able to just get a lot of momentum with their carries, and eventually they got really close to the try line once again. Fayenga, the hooker this time, he missed just a bit short a few minutes ago. This time he gets the ball. He kind of runs around the what do you call it? He kind of gets around he was like swooping around basically like a winger from the blind side into the open side, and he gets the ball. Just the massive momentum he carries with that run, carries himself, busts through the defensive line and gets himself over the try line for the second try for the Western Force, less than 10 minutes. A few minutes later, the Duros finally hits backs. Took them about 15 minutes to get the game going. The Duros gets a penalty. This was a really nice setup set piece, actually. Like I said, the set piece has been improving for the Enduros, and this was a really nice variation for the lineout. They go for the lineout, they go for the for a maul, and it looked like the maul wasn't going anywhere, but it was just kind of a bit of a setup. They have the hooker sweeps around from the sideline, sweeps around the maul, and the ball gets popped to him, and he just basically massive crash ball down the 10 channel, and he gets really close to the try line. And then the ball comes out, a big nice wide ball to the number 14 for the Enduro. Let me try to get his name up. Ironi Sau, he gets the ball, and then he just did a nice little dummy, and then the stiff onto his opposite number, Zach Kibridge, yeah, just nice little stiff onto him, goes straight in for the first try for the Enduros. Quite nice and beautiful. 12 points to 7, 50 minutes into the game. After this, 25 minutes in the game, the Enduro has an option to kick for a penalty. They missed the penalty. So after this penalty was missed, the Enduros kind of realized they don't want to waste their opportunities anymore. Try to go for tries instead of go for the penalties, which is a good call. I kind of applaud them for that. The 30 minutes into the game, the Endurance gets penalized for not rolling away. Oh yeah, no, sorry. 30 minutes into the game, the Fijians gets a penalty. One of the Western Force players was not rolling away. So Fijian, like I said, really applauded efforts. Instead of going for the easy 3 points, they decided to go to the corner. And sure enough, they back themselves and get themselves into a good position, and it rewards themselves. So they go for the line out. They basically had a more, and they just rumble themselves over through for a try. The I think what happened was no, yeah, they go for a more, and then there was a few big pick and goes. One of the players, uh, Akiwaru, goes over, right? The referee on the field goes in, take a look, and he says, "Oh, it's held up." And then the TMO calls the referee, Angus Garner, saying, "Hey, I think there was a try score." They showed a replay where the ball was actually grounded before it was kind of like held up. So then, referee gives this one the try. 32 minutes in, so suddenly the Endurance are back ahead, give themselves ahead, 14 points to 12. 30 minutes into the game, just before halftime, the Western Force actually really, showed a lot of grit as well. Just before halftime, they get a penalty. They really wanted to get themselves some points before full time, so they put a lot of pressure inside the Endurance half and worked really, really hard to get a penalty. In the 2 minutes into the extra time, just before halftime, they take the three and goes into halftime, 15 points to 14 with 1 point lead. Second half starts, the Western Force clearly wanted the game, kind of like goes for their momentum. A minute into the second half, just really strong carries, a lot of physicality, really had like a second win almost for the team. Just big pick and go, and then eventually Williams runs over 3 defenders, goes in for a try. He just kind of like picked up, and it almost looked like the Fijians were kind of like off guard a little bit. There was 3 players there, but everybody thought maybe he wants. Nobody looks like they're kind of expecting him to just pick and go, despite the fact that that's what Western Force has been doing. Everyone was caught a bit napping, goes in for the first try. And then 64 minutes into the game, once again, the Western Force was putting a lot of pressure on the Endurance. For the second half, the Endurance just really starting to look like really starting to look like they're tired. There's a lot of handling errors. There's a lot of missed passes, and just look like they're out of ideas a little bit. And then eventually, the Western Force was able to get themselves in the front foot again. Fainga gets a second try on the ball for him. Again, just good carries from the Western Force, get themselves in range. And then, Fainga goes over. I think this might be a more try, I can't remember. Fainga goes over 64 minutes into the game. And then going into the last maybe 20 minutes or so, the Endurance still have a chance to win. You still feel like the Endurance, has that reputation for the comeback wins almost every week. That they're still within reach, just 2 tries to catch up with the Western Force. But that energy just wasn't there for Endurance. They tried to do a few offloads and just kind of like gets knocked on, and then the Western Force was able to kind of like slowly but surely just keep the Fijian Endurance pinned into their own half. 74 minutes into the game, the Western Force once again were just rumbling inside the Fijians half. Lots of quick pick and goes, lots of short ball, crash balls. Eventually, they got really close to the try line. There was a lot of defenders get sucked into the breakdown, and you can see the Endurance had like half the team on one side and like 2 people on the blind side, and the quick ball comes out, and just easier side, they spread the ball out to the blind side, and Tizano goes in for the kind of like nail in the coffin. 74 minutes in for the try for the Western Force, and at this point you feel like the Fijians did try to kind of get like a consolation point, but it was just really wasn't able to build towards anything. A few phases later, they would drop the ball, just not able to put sustained pressure on the Western Force team, and then and that's the way the end ended. Juris did look like they tried to get a consolation try, but it wasn't really didn't really pay off for them at the end. But that is the way it is. It's been really tough. sometimes mentally, it's really difficult to ask a team to perform really well one week to kind of just, throw everything out one week and then to come back again next week is always really difficult. It's kind of like, I guess, State of Origin. Sometimes this is why they have a break. This is why a lot of the team kind of like play poorly after the players after they play the State of Origin game, because it's just taken so much out of them. They're so burnt out from the physicality, from the exhaustion of the match, just mentally and physically. So going into the next week, a lot of this, it's very difficult for players to sustain that intensity for many weeks in a row. So with that being said, it is what it is. The Western Force gets a very crucial, very well deserved bonus point to make into the top 8, and Honduras has a few really tough rounds ahead of them to try to get themselves into the elimination rounds. Anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts. Did I miss anything? Let me know what you think of the game, and like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow for more Super Rugby reviews. Cheers.